Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor. It used to be after going to the gym, but now it's in isolation and quarantine while his entire family is upstairs. If you hear some bumps, you hear some noises, just do your best to get over it because that's the world we're living in. Today I'm going to be reviewing an album called From Liberty Street by the band Mapache. That comes from a Spanish word for raccoon, so I am going to be pronouncing it that way. I believe John Wayne would pronounce it Mapache, but we're going to pronounce it Mapache. And they have done something unprecedented. Basically something I did not believe was possible. They made music that is very clearly, heavily inspired by, and crafted by their love of the Grateful Dead. That, 1 second, does not suck. They made Grateful Dead-like music, and they were not the Grateful Dead, and it doesn't suck. Do you have any idea how many have tried and failed at this quest? I'm going to be discussing with you today, how did they do it? Why did they do it? Like, what is it that makes this good and so much other of the rest of all the other music that's been inspired by the Grateful Dead, basically mannerist garbage? I'll talk a little bit here about what they did. First of all, their songs are created for listening, not for jamming. So too often when bands take from the Grateful Dead, they go, well, we don't have to worry about songwriting, because they didn't, which is a lie, they did, and they just construct songs that are very sloppy or kind of interesting, but underdeveloped. And it's all set up so, man, when you go to the concert, it's gonna be awesome! But when you actually listen to it, on record, it's not that great. That being said, I actually don't own any Grateful Dead records. I've only ever listened to them live, but still, the underlying basis of what it is that they do is based on good songwriting. So this band manages to do Grateful Dead-like songwriting, but not like their sort of more rambling songs, more like their tighter songs, a little bit more like the late 60s, early 70s, Working Man Dead era. There's no noodling on the entire thing. It's a Grateful Dead-inspired album with no guitar noodling. Do you have any idea how rare that is? That is a albino raccoon. It's not 11 people. It's not like 17 different people being like, dude, do you want to be my Dead band? Yeah, man. It's actually just 2 people. 2 singers who write songs, who play songs, and who sing in great harmony together. Again, an underrated aspect of the Grateful Dead is their ability to harmonize. And they managed to harmonize, Mapache managed to harmonize probably actually better than the Grateful Dead did for the majority of their career. Smoking and heroin appears to have a terrible impact on people's voices. And most importantly, it feels to me that this band is not about a lifestyle, it's about the music that they make. It's not about some kind of hippie, preppy dream, which is what the Grateful Dead ended up being about. Instead, it's just 2 people making quality music with great harmony and great musicianship. Now let me tell you a little bit about my history with the Grateful Dead. I've never talked about them on this channel, but they are probably the biggest influence on my life in high school, or one of them, in addition to hip-hop and Nirvana. I was inspired by my brothers. My 2 oldest brothers have seen the Grateful Dead over 40 times, and so I kind of wanted to be like them. This is actually a Grateful Dead poster. It turns out from the Earl Warren Showgrounds in Santa Barbara. I used to take my kids there when I lived in Santa Barbara. See, Grateful Dead and the Doors, they played together. When I was in high school, I actually collected, pre-internet, Grateful Dead bootleg tapes. So what you do is you'd make a list of the tapes that you had, and you would trade them to other people. And you'd send them blank tapes, blank cassette tapes, and then they would send you, copies. So these are all copies that I have. I have over 150 of these things. I would make like my own little designs and my own little set lists. Kind of cool, kind of cute. Now on the internet you can get all this stuff for free, the best possible sound quality. But I was a huge Grateful Dead fan. But people would say, oh, Skye, so are you a Deadhead? And I'd be like, no, I hate those people. I was all about the music. I went to over 20 Dead shows before Jerry died when I was 17. Jerry Garcia died of heroin. Heroin's a terrible drug. Don't pretend like it's not. And like I would go to the shows and I'd look kind of like this, but without the beard. And everyone thought I was a narc, Everyone got really stressed out around me because I wasn't having the long hair and twirling around. But at the basis of it, if you strip away all of the the dancing bear tattoos and all of the weed and all of the parking lot and the whole scene, you have a band that managed to create something amazing. And Mapache took everything that they did that was good and apparently has stripped away everything else. One thing about what Mapache does that I think is different than what the Grateful Dead do is it's a general feel question. The Grateful Dead feels very much like Northern California. And Mapache, coming from LA apparently, has a much more southern feel. There's a little bit of a softer glaze on everything, which I think suits the music quite well. But if like you have a sort of natural inclination to dislike sort of Neil Young's kind of early 70s work, you might not like this. But I like that, and I liked it a lot. There's a lot of Western themes that kind of drench the album thematically. There's a song called Cowboy, a song called Coyote, and then there's a whole bunch of songs in Spanish, which, blends to this very California feel. It's a very California album. But I really suggest it, especially if you like music with good harmonies, acoustic guitar, well-written songs. It has a very uplifting feel. Perhaps you're having kind of a negative time, perhaps you're sitting at home, you need something better, a better soundtrack. Why not Grateful Dead without all the part that sucks? Another thing is that, part of what makes the Dead acolytes, the people that follow them, so bad is that for the most part, they're just like large groups of prep school kids who are just taking a hiatus before they inherit their father's investment banking group, Like there's this whole weird sort of like preppy, hippie overlap. And I don't get that feeling from here. Like, it doesn't feel like they're just goofing around. It feels like they're making really serious music and that they're really trying. Even if the soundscape, I was playing it this morning while making breakfast. Okay, I was pouring cereal for my kids. It's making breakfast. There's a lot of meals to make for your kids these days. I was making breakfast and my daughter's like, "Is this old music?" I'm like, "No, it's new music. It sounds like old music." I'm like, "Yeah, it does." If you are a Grateful Dead fan and you particularly like the 1980 Radio City Music Hall, or was it Carnegie Hall? Whatever it was, those shows in New York, this is probably closest to that. Very acoustic, very clean. This band does run the danger of getting a terrible, terrible case of the Greta Van Fleetitis. It's a term I just came up with. So Greta Van Fleet is that band that tries to sound like Led Zeppelin that people who like Led Zeppelin listen to. Greta Van Fleetitis is when young people make old music for old people to think they're young. And that's not what's going on here. This doesn't feel like pandering. I don't think that they're hoping to reach out to guys my age and older, and much older. Most of the Grateful Dead fans are in their 50s and 60s, if not 70s, to make them go, "Oh, young people are making good music." It doesn't feel like some kind of terrible throwback. It just feels like good music being made in that space. I promise you I'm going to play you a little bit of it in a second. I'm doing a lot of build-up, but I have a lot of thoughts. Because my love of the Grateful Dead was so tough to hate Deadheads and love the Dead. Not hate, but have major problems with Deadheads. So, again, I'm going to play you the first song. And these are the things I want you to listen for. Really super strong vocals, good harmony, good guitar. It's not too noodly. One thing that the Grateful Dead often don't get enough credit for is the bass work of Phil Lesh. Phil Lesh is able to create absolutely fantastically lost bass lines. Like when he plays, you get the sense like, Phil, come back. Come back to the root note, but he always makes it. And he's a really underrated bass player in that way. And they managed to do that. But because the guitar is not doing anything noodling, the bass can go too far at times without hurting the song structure. So I'm going to play you just the first track right now, called Life on Fire. And it's everything that I've just said, and I think you can hear it. I'm going to try to play it a little bit in the middle. Maybe you can hear some of the guitar solo. Lots of nice guitar work on here. Nothing too fancy. It's all just really quite good. For some reason, I didn't have Tidal open on my computer. Oh, it's because I've been teaching with this computer. So here's a track from Mapache's from Liberty Street, Life on Fire.
Now I drink that jar
See, there's that super Southern California harmony leading into the chorus. Ooh, babe. You kind of hear that mixture. Southern California, modern, Grateful Dead style band. That doesn't quite do it justice. You should listen to the whole thing because it really does create a nice atmosphere, a kind of a happy, mellow atmosphere. Not that much drums on the album, you heard it there. But that's just a great track. Next track, Read Between the Lines, a little bit more folky, Jerry style. He sings a lot like Jerry Garcia, but in the best possible way, like young Jerry Garcia, pre-40 cigarettes a day Jerry Garcia. It's really quite nice. See Through is the most overtly Southern California style, kind of gentleness, a little bit of a lack of bite there. Faces Blue, this is where you hear a lot of there's a lot of great pedal steel on the album. And any band that can use pedal steel well, pedal steel guitar really deserves a lot of credit. It can be overused, it can be misused. They're able, when it's used well, it can create a kind of atmosphere. I think Neil Young did this really well on the first Harvest album. And they do it well here. It can be used to create a kind of atmosphere because it has that kind of droning feel, but then it can also be plucked out and used to actually create lead lines and create melody. And they're able to do both, and that's what you hear here. Then there's the track Cowboy, which, just based on the title, how many good songs have there been about cowboys? Not many. It's a terrible subject. Terrible subject. It's just so prone to cliche and lameness. But somehow they do it well. They're not winking. They don't wink on the entire album. Like there's no point where they're kind of like, we know what we're doing. It's just kind of a song about the thematics of cowboys. The next track is instrumental. Excellent. If you don't like the vocals, listen to the song Liberty Blues. This is where you hear great use of pedal steel, particularly the atmospheric kind. The echoes, kind of da-da-da melody. This is a soundtrack to a good day. You know, the sun is out. I'm going to go for a walk with my kids and my wife soon. You know, we're going to be playing some Pokemon Go, catching some new psychic types. It's going to be sunny out. I might just put this on my phone. You know, it's that kind of song. It's that kind of album. This is really good. This is a really good album. I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to buy it, though. Well, I might buy it, but I'll tell you why at the end of the video. Then there's the song Coyote. If I had a complaint about this band, it's that sometimes their songs are a tad undercooked. So this song doesn't quite feel like a whole song. It doesn't have quite enough parts, quite enough development, but it has these nice kind of old style, like yodels, which is kind of fun and cute. But what I would like, maybe, I think, what I'd like from this band is to have an album that's maybe 10 minutes shorter and maybe just have it be a little bit more dense, because they are capable of writing great songs that are rich and have a lot of variety, but they don't do it every time. Then the track Cherry Barb, just beautiful harmony, probably the best singing. Kind of simple song construction, 2 guitars and 2 people singing, really quite nice. Usually it seems to have the background singer very far behind, which I think works well. It makes it feel bluegrass-ish, but not quite like 2 equal voices going. Apparently a cherry barb is a kind of fish. I don't know. I learned that while looking it up. I haven't mentioned any of the songs in Spanish. I was waiting till now for the song Ma de Muerte, which is my favorite Spanish one. I don't really know why they do songs in Spanish. Neither of them are native speakers, I don't think. I read in their title biography that one of them went on a mission to Mexico. So that's, can't get more Californian than that. So I don't know if they're doing Spanish just because they can, if because it opens up a different soundscape for them, because their songs sound more Mexican, you know, for lack of a better word. I don't dislike the stuff in Spanish, and it does provide a nice break, you know, in the rhythm of the album as you go through, but it doesn't quite feel as genuine as the rest of it. Which leads into the last track, Steal Away and Pray, which I believe is an old standard, but they credit themselves as writing it. I don't know. Someone could put that in the credits if they know. Super religious song about how important it is to sit back and pray. And this is where they become so 60s, I don't even know how to handle it. Because, like, I don't know if this band is Christian or not. The rest of the album has not led me to believe that they are. And so doing a super duper Christian song after this whole kind of standard, not standard, but after this whole Southern California, Western, kind of hippie-ish, hippie-adjacent music, and then having it be super religious, that actually reminds me of what bands did in the 60s, where they would just throw out gospel songs, or they would just throw out old-time country songs and not worry about it, not worry about appropriation, not worry about all these things. It is a nice way to end the album, and I do actually like it. But it does run close to the danger that this band runs. I'd say that the two risks, I don't think they fall into it, but if you had a less sympathetic take on them, this is what you would think. They're too much affect with the sort of Spanish and religious, and they don't quite develop their songs enough. But I think they do, and it's definitely worth a listen. If you've ever liked the Grateful Dead, but hated the Grateful Dead, this is a great band for you. All right, so there you go. I'm excited. My wife listened to it, and she's like, I listened to this in the house. We should buy it. And I'll tell you why I'm not. And so I went to their thing, and the whole time I've been like, how nice is it to have this like hippie band, and they don't make any reference to drugs, and there's no songs that are all about like being kind or any of that BS. And then they sell rolling papers with their vinyl album. So I'm like, come on. You guys were this close. But I just couldn't click. But I think I'm going to buy the album anyways, because my wife likes it, and who cares? The war's over, Mr. Lebowski. The bums won. Okay, until next time, for Emperor Palpatine, Senator Palpatine, for Jerry, Bobby, and Phil, and these two guys in this band. There's the camera.